video isn't telling the story from here, so I'm gonna have to cut to some narration. We're about 3 hours from midnight at this point, and we had most of the car put back together. The hood latch assembly gave us quite a time, but eventually I was able to move it upward enough and space the mount up with a washer to allow it to close with some finesse. It's still a bit testy, but good enough for the moment. The biggest issue was the fan. Apparently the fan was cracked in the wreck. So we drove off to a local parts store at about 9 p.m. to get a new fan, and when we came back, we were unable to get the new fan to fire up. Worse, when the car would run at times it would overheat, but oddly enough, things like the headlights were misbehaving, and there were odd clicking sounds whenever we would shut the car off. Some of it might have been the engine dieseling, but there was a definite electrical gremlin that had emerged, and we wrestled with it until about 2 a.m. By that time, I had all but given up on getting the car ready for my grandson's birthday. We were all tired from the battle. I was running on fumes, having spent the prior days burning midnight oil for the project, and then this day, the final day, starting at about 10 a.m. in the morning, I was now about 14 hours into it and just completely dog-tired. I did some research on my phone, and everything that I came across suggested we were chasing an odd electrical issue that frankly had me pretty flummoxed. Besides the car overheating, the fan was not engaging, the lights would flicker, and other odd things were happening, and I decided it was most likely a bad CCRM. The CCRM is in the fender, right near where the air breather assembly exited and the car, and I'd been wrestling with the things in that area. Possibly we damaged it, I determined, or maybe that it was, damaged in the wreck and the thing finally was roached. In any case, if the CCRM was bad, I knew there was a good one. I had one on my Barra project car in the garage a mere 20 miles away. At about 2 a.m., after we packed up all the tools and pretty much given up on the challenge, my grandson made the call. If you have the energy to go after this thing, I'm game. So we all packed up into Betty White for a final run. By this time, the Insta was full out of juice, and so was my auxiliary battery. I was functioning on fumes myself. My son was extremely tired, and we were all pretty much hoping for a successful conclusion. It was my grandson's 18th birthday, and by golly, we were going to get this thing running. So we drove to where I had the project car up on jack stands, and we pulled the CCRM off of it. We refueled with some coffee, and we drove back. All right, we've gone all the way back to my Project Mustang car and robbed it of its CCRM. We believe that we have a bad charge. I can't remember what it's, constant charge relay module, whatever it is. CCRM is a big bank of relays, and it's used to do things like turn on the fan, turn on the lights, and it's just got a bunch of relays. Anyways, we're not getting the fan, even though we are pretty certain we've got a good fan from O'Reilly. And we tried plugging in the original fan, and when you unplugged the fan, the lights that were not turned on went out because the lights were coming on their own. Another clue was at one point when the car was running kind of funny, we heard a bunch of clicking, and it was coming from roughly here, which now we're basically getting set up. It's about 3 in the morning on Bubby's 18th birthday, and we're trying to get him his car. So, yeah. All right, let's get this thing rolling. I have this still photo of my grandson reinstalling the CCRM in his car. We installed the new CCRM, and the car behaved, stayed cool, but stoutly refused to kick that new fan on. At about 3:30 a.m., it was obvious that his car was mostly back together and that we'd won, but that we'd have to sort out that fan issue later. We took the car for a drive to a local gas station with the McDonald's to fuel it up and to fuel ourselves up. Of course, I insisted that we put the top down. Bob, it's your 18th birthday. I do believe we have fixed your car. Let's put the top down and go to McDonald's.
Top down, go.
Sure, why not?
Sick.
Alrighty.
Get the windows up.
Alright. You ready? mean, don't be surprised if it doesn't drive real straight, because it's had trauma.
First drive right after it crashed.
Oh, happy birthday, bub. What the heck?
I really
Happy birthday.
appreciate you guys now.
It's got an interesting sound to it, I have to say. What the heck? Wow.
Not doing too bad so far.
Is it driving fairly straight anyway? I'll be doggone.
Oh, look at that. Green is there.
Here's your phone. Park the thing and go get some food and we're putting fuel in it. We're gonna fill it up. Let's meet the team. That's my grandson, my son, Jesse, myself, and who can forget our F-150 Betty White.